Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy week, really. Walpurgis night evening was beautiful. My family and I were around the campfire all evening. The kids played on guitar or we listened to folk music. It was very hippie-ish. We made baked potatoes. There were lots of giant beetles flying around, which I haven't seen before. May the 1st, Beltane, it's always a big day here. And one of the traditions is you have to kiss your loved one under the blossom boughs of a cherry tree. Now, unfortunately, in my garden, every cherry tree we plant gets eaten by deer in the winter, so they never survive. Plum, we got loads of because young plum trees have big thorns. Lots of apple trees, but no cherry. So we went for a walk and found a few wild cherry trees. This area has lots of them. Very beautiful though, very springy feeling. Anyway, this week I've mostly been dealing with wood, which story of my life. And a few things sprang to mind, just about lifestyle choices. You know, I watch YouTube videos and sometimes I think what it would be like to live back in, say, in the UK, work in an office, have regular money. Would I be able to readapt to that lifestyle? Well, when you're a kid in school and you have a careers advisor and you normally do this sort of questionnaire and they work out which professions are best for you, I was wondering if they ever have my style of life as an option, because I don't think anybody deliberately aims to end up like this. Here's an example of today. I get up in the morning, I have coffee, I go out and stack wood for a bit that I've chopped the previous evening. I then go in and today I've got a very large proofreading. One of the things I do to make money is I proofread texts translated into English from Czech and Slovak. And today I'm doing a massive text, an official state text on the decommissioning of a nuclear power plant and all of the relevant technologies. So I'll do that for a bit, come out and chop wood. Then I go back in, carry on my proofreading, come back out, stack wood and keep repeating. I can't imagine what it would be like to sit and work 8-hour shift in an office, 2 hours commute maybe each way, and perhaps at the weekend, go to a park. I'm not putting it down, I'm just, sometimes it hits me. I've been here for almost a quarter of a century and I often wonder what that life path would have been like, because it was an option. Definitely was an option. This week, another example of what life is like out here. In the morning I'd received a proofreading from one of the agencies, and quite often I'll send the ladies in the office back in the big city photos of foxes or squirrels or other stuff that I've taken in my garden, and they love it. In return they'll send me a photo of their fish tank. This week I sent them a photo of the plum blossom trees which I can see out my back window. And one of the ladies replied, it's like, that's amazing. It must be incredible living where you do, because they live basically in a grey tower block environment in the capital, Bratislava. Well, I thought, yeah, it's really cool. It's really beautiful. However, at one stage during the day, I opened my kitchen door, stepped outside, and almost stepped on an adder, a European viper, a venomous snake, which was just making its way past my foot. It went under my dog's bench, under the kindling boxes under my dog's bench, and then went into a hole right next to the front doorstep. And it was a fairly large snake. Immediately my plans have to change. I was coming out to chop wood for a bit. I now have the problem of having a venomous snake underneath my dog's bench. And my dog, the way he investigates things, and he investigates everything, is by shoving his nose into holes. This would lead to an extremely painful death. So I now have the problem of removing an adder. Now, this is a bit of speciesism. I actually like snakes, and I've got quite a bit of experience dealing with snakes. In Israel, when I was on the kibbutz in my youth, I used to hunt them, and I'd skin them and turn their skins into wristbands, and I'd eat the meat, much to the chagrin of my fellow volunteers. If I see a snake in the wild, I'll take photographs of it. I have no problems with them whatsoever. In fact, if I see a snake on a road, I will shoo the snake off the road so it doesn't get hurt. Once in my youth, I was in the Everglades in Florida with my family, and we were on this really small, long road. We came across this giant cottonmouth, a water moccasin, just basking across the road. So we stopped the car, got out, and shooed it off the road. I learned why they're called cottonmouths. Here we get 3 species of real snake. We get the European viper, the adder, we get the smooth snake, and we get the grass snake. We also get the slow worm, but that's a legless lizard. Something we try to encourage in the garden. Anyway, adders. I have quite a bit of experience with adders themselves. When I was a child, I think about 6 or 7 years of age, I was camping with my family in the New Forest in England, and we'd been through a walk on one of the forest paths through the New Forest, and an adder came out the bush, came across my foot and stopped, and I could feel its heart beating in my foot. It then carried on going. It was a big shock to everyone because they are venomous. They can cause you massive problems. A few hours later, my mother was boiling this big pot of water on the campfire. I don't know what for, stew or soup or pasta or something. And me being a hyperactive child, I kicked over the pan of boiling water, and it went on the same foot the adder had rested on, and I lost all the skin on that foot. Basically, the rest of the holiday involved me being in hospital, having skin removed. It was horrifically painful. It grew back, bizarrely, but that was my first encounter with an adder. Here, every few years, we get a lot of them. Last year, we didn't get any. We just had grass snakes, which we don't normally get. But maybe 10 years ago, in the hallway, which is the old part of the house, we had this sort of explosion of baby adders all over the floor. I mean, they were literally everywhere. There was some crack along the side of the hallway in the skirting board, and they'd come from some nest underneath and they were all just pouring into the hallway. Now, one funny thing about snakes, baby snakes are a lot more dangerous than adult snakes, because an adult snake will regulate how much venom it releases when it bites. A baby snake won't. They have the same amount of venom and they will release all of it in one go. Now you imagine these are basically the size of pencils and they're all over the floor. That was fun and frolics trying to get rid of them. The way I did it is actually a technique I learned in Israel when I used to get the venomous snake zephyrs coming under the door of my volunteer room, and that's to wrap cardboard in sticky tape with sticky going upwards. Eventually the snake will catch itself on the sticky tape, and then you can, extricate them and release them back into the wild, or whatever else you want to do with them. But this snake that decided to park itself inside a hole next to my front doorstep, I couldn't get to it, but I knew I couldn't leave it. It would kill my dog, and also because we have the kindling boxes there, it would probably bite my wife, which means a horrific problem, and could bite my daughter or any of us really. But it was a wake-up call about what we live with. It took me about an hour to get the snake out the hole, and unfortunately sometimes you have to make executive decisions, and this led me to thinking about speciesism, how some species of animals we enjoy sharing the company of. My garden is full of songbirds, for example, and other species of animal we don't really appreciate. One way I'm probably different to many is my house is full of spiders, and they're everywhere, especially overnight, and a lot of them are very large. There's a lot of cobwebs, and I have no problem with spiders whatsoever because they keep out flies and mosquitoes. But I have even seen it on the internet, what to do if you have a spider in your house, and this complex instructions about you have to remove basically the insects, and in order to do that you have to remove any food morsels. And I'm thinking, a spider? Trust me, if you're arachnophobic, you wouldn't like where we live. There are many animals which, when I first came here, I was absolutely fascinated with, especially the martins in England. A martin is something legendary because they're now only in the north of Scotland, same as the red squirrels we have everywhere. And I was fascinated by them. Now, I'm like banging on the ceiling saying, "Fuck off!" because they're so annoying. And the outside of my house is littered with insulation from where they've ripped it out, making nests. Deer, I love in the morning stepping outside and seeing red or roe deer trundling around behind the fence grazing. But when they're in my garden, you get angry and it's like, "Get out!" And they go, "Ugh," at you. Foxes. Some nights I will throw scraps of food which haven't gone to the dog, normally because they're a bit rancid. I'll throw them out the back fence and the foxes will eat them, which keeps them alive during winter. But when they're in the garden, I really don't want them. I'm not a fan of scabies and rabies. It just led me to think all this. Would I be able to transplant this lifestyle to a 9-to-5 one in, you know, some town or city in the UK or America, and think about mortgages and credit and leasing, and you know, when I think about the modern generation of women, what they look for in partners, I can imagine now it's, you know, I don't know what a Kappa Frappuccino is. I don't know what a macchiato latte or whatever is. I'd be so distanced from the lingo and logic. I love this lifestyle. I really do. But every now and again you're reminded it's not. You learn skills which aren't transferable. But I think that happens in every environment. Even in an office environment, you learn, I'm not just talking about educational skills or computer programming or something concrete. I mean, you learn certain skills about, say, dealing with colleagues or management, which I would be sorely lacking in. There's lots of choices in this world. You know, I like watching videos about, say, expats living in Pattaya in Thailand. That's a completely different lifestyle to what I live here. I mean, there's no go-go bars for a start. And it's completely different life to, you know, some small town or big city in the West. Completely different. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. What sort of lifestyle would you like to live, or are you content with your lifestyle, and what is that? Anyway, as always, be free.